up, guys? Alec Ankiri here. A question I get asked all the time is, how do I stop my hips from shooting up when I squat? So today, I want to give you guys my take on that question. So let's get to it. Now, before we can touch on how to solve this issue, first we have to understand exactly what issue we're talking about and why it occurs in the first place. To be clear, I'm not referring here to someone who simply squats with a large degree of torso lean overall. For instance, Jesse Norris is quite leaned over when he squats, but he leans forward during the eccentric phase and maintains pretty much the same degree of torso inclination throughout the concentric phase. What I'm referring to in this video is the degree of change in torso lean after the transition from eccentric to concentric. Now, there are two main reasons why the hips might shoot up out of the hole of a squat and leave you keeled over and forced to dump the bar. The first is simply poor technique. You haven't performed enough moderately heavy but technically perfect reps over the course of your training career to create a motor pattern that's deeply ingrained enough into your nervous system that it can't be altered. This is the type of issue that would start to rear its head when moderate but not maximal weights are being used. So for example, if you can squat 50% of your max with perfect technique, but by 70 or 80% your hips start to fly up, chances are you just need to strengthen the integrity of your technique by working with these moderate weights more often and absolutely forcing yourself to keep better posture and stopping the set when things start to get sloppy. You may be weaker at first and have to do less reps per set than you're used to with a given weight, but in time, with diligent and focused practice, you'll become much stronger, much more efficient, and much less likely to become injured. The second reason why the hips might shoot up out of the hole of a squat, and the one I really want to focus on today because I've heard many opinions on the subject, most of which I don't agree with, is muscular weakness of the quadriceps. Now, this idea seems to confuse a lot of people. In fact, one kid that I tried to explain it to at the gym one time looked at me like I was a freaking idiot. But bear with me. I think the reason most people, especially athletes, have a hard time grasping this is because for some reason everyone always thinks that they're quad dominant. So if that's the case, how can their quads be weak? The thing about that is, quad dominance is a relative term. Your quads may be dominant in comparison to your hamstrings, which would likely predispose you to knee injuries and is something that you should probably fix, but that's a video for another day. But it doesn't mean that your quads are strong, it just means that they're stronger than your hamstrings. However, the muscles in your lower back, the ones that you've been using unconsciously your whole life to lift every object you've ever lifted before you started trying to learn how to lift barbells, are still proportionately stronger than your quads. And subconsciously, your brain knows this. So your body does its best to eliminate the weak muscle group from the lift as quickly as possible by allowing the hips to shoot up out of the hole independent of the shoulders, meaning the hips have now risen, but the bar has essentially not yet moved. This effectively eliminates the quads from the lift before the brunt of the load has even been felt, and by shifting you into the infamous squat morning position, transfers the majority of the weight onto the comparably stronger back muscles, the same muscles you would deliberately be attempting to target if you were actually doing a good morning. Now, I've seen some people with this issue conclude that their quads must be super strong because they were able to extend rapidly when no other muscles were. But I can assure you that that logic is flawed, and this is not the case. The quads weren't lifting the weight, they were merely escaping it. Ending up in this position dramatically increases the shear forces on the spine, potentially leading to disc injury, and also greatly increases the lever arm during the lift, putting you at a mechanical disadvantage. Ironically, this causes the upper back muscles to fold over, and they then become misdiagnosed as a source of weakness due to their failure, when in reality, they were simply the last link in the chain of failure that began with the quadriceps. Strengthening the upper back would certainly still be beneficial, but as we've learned, it shouldn't be the primary focus of your efforts. Unlike with technical instability, which as I mentioned earlier would begin to show itself with moderate weights, this issue shouldn't become readily apparent until the weights are pretty heavy, probably 90% or higher. This is when technique breakdown due to muscular weaknesses is more likely to become an issue, rather than simply just technique breakdown due to poor motor patterns. If we take a look at my most recent squat PR of 530 pounds from a couple months ago, we can see that my hips pop up a little bit as I come out of the hole of the squat, which causes my torso to pitch forward. And then as I hit the sticking point, you can see my upper back start to round as well. I'm just barely able to maintain position well enough to grind out the lift. Here you can see the degree of change in my torso angle from the deepest point of the squat to the point where the stretch reflex has just about dissipated. So this issue is still something that I struggle with every time the weight gets heavy, and I don't exactly have small quads. But this is why I'm constantly working to make them stronger regardless, and I have made great improvements over the last several years. So what can we do to rectify this issue? I know I've said this multiple times on my channel already, but it bears repeating. In my opinion, the biggest weapon we have in our arsenal to combat this issue is front squats. There's simply no other exercise that specific to squatting that forces you to maintain a constant torso angle and upright posture even as fatigue sets in, and is therefore able to so greatly stress the quads in the most specific manner possible. It also packs a double whammy of being an incredible builder of upper back and abdominal strength, which ultimately allows you to maintain better posture and more tightness for a longer period of time and grind through some of those tougher squats that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to maintain position for. If for some reason you don't like front squats, I suppose you could try safety bar squats. I've never had the opportunity to try these myself, but judging from what others have said about them and from watching videos of others perform them, I would imagine that they would have some of the same benefits as front squats, in that the weight is constantly trying to yank you forward, and it's to your advantage to make sure you don't let it. This exercise doesn't have quite the same built-in regulator of technique as front squats do though, and could potentially become sloppy if you allow it. Other than that, just make sure you hammer your quads with some supplementary work in addition to your primary work. Things like leg presses and hack squats have gotten a bad rap in recent years, but they have the potential to greatly hypertrophy and strengthen the quads, and shouldn't be shunned unless they've been attempted with an honest effort. Even heavy sled dragging has its place when attempting to increase the volume of work the quads can handle without taxing them beyond what they can recover from. Ultimately, the more volume you can put them through, the larger they'll grow, and the larger they grow, the stronger you should be able to make them. Anyway, that's all I got for now, guys. If you like the content I produce, please be sure to like the video, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll catch you guys next time.